Sarah buys a house. Tom rents an apartment. They both think they made the smarter financial choice. They're both absolutely convinced they are right. But one of them forgot to calculate the invisible costs of ownership, and the other discovered a mathematical loophole that nobody talks about. When you run the actual numbers over 10 years, the gap will make you question everything your parents told you about real estate. Let's keep this perfectly fair. Sarah and Tom both earn $75,000 a year. They both live in the same city. They both have $60,000 sitting in the bank. The only difference is what they do with that money. Sarah uses her $60,000 as a 15% down payment on a $400,000 house. She gets a 30-year mortgage at 6.5%. Her monthly mortgage payment is about $2,100. She invites her friends over for a housewarming party. Everyone tells her how smart she is. Rent is throwing money away, they say. Sarah feels like an adult. She has a piece of paper that says she owns a piece of the earth. Tom takes a completely different path. He rents a nice, two-bedroom apartment down the street for $1,800 a month. He takes his $60,000 savings and drops it straight into an S&P 500 index fund. When Tom tells his co-workers he's still renting, they give him that look. You know the look. The "oh, poor Tom is paying someone else's mortgage" look. On day one, Sarah has a house, a yard, and social proof. Tom has a landlord and a brokerage account. It feels like Sarah is winning. But feelings and math are two very different things. For the first 3 years, Sarah is experiencing the reality of home ownership. Yes, her property is appreciating. But here's what nobody warned her about: the phantom costs. Her $2,100 mortgage isn't her only housing expense. Property taxes run her $4,500 a year. Homeowner's insurance is another $1,200. In year 2, her HVAC system dies in the middle of July. That's $6,500. In year 3, she discovers a minor roof leak. That's $2,000. Plus, she's spending weekends at Home Depot buying lawnmowers, paint, and tools. Over 3 years, Sarah has paid over $75,000 in mortgage payments. But because of how loan amortization works, only about $12,000 of that actually went toward paying down her principal. The other $63,000 went straight to the bank in interest. Read that again. She threw away $63,000 to the bank. Tom, meanwhile, is paying his $1,800 rent. When his AC breaks, he sends a text to his landlord, goes back to watching Netflix, and pays $0. But here is Tom's secret weapon. Because his rent is cheaper than Sarah's total home ownership. Costs, mortgage, taxes, insurance, repairs. Tom takes the $600 difference every single month and auto-invests it into his index fund. Let's jump to year 10. This is where the math gets brutal. Sarah's house has appreciated nicely at 4% a year. Her $400,000 house is now worth about $590. She owes $310,000 on the mortgage. That means Sarah has $280,000 in home equity. She feels rich. But let's subtract the phantom costs she paid over the last decade. Property taxes, $45,000. Maintenance and repairs, 1% rule, $40,000. Mortgage interest paid, $190. Sarah's first profit isn't what it looks like on paper, and all of her wealth is trapped inside drywall and bricks. If she wants to buy groceries with that wealth, she has to borrow against it or sell the house and pay a realtor 6%. Now let's look at Tom. Tom's original $60,000 in the stock market, growing at an average of 9% a year, plus his $600 monthly contributions, has turned into a monster. At the end of year 10, Tom's brokerage account is sitting at approximately $255,000. Wait, you say, Sarah has $280,000 in equity. Tom has $255,000 in stocks. Sarah won, right? Not exactly. Because here is the psychology of what actually happens in the real world. Sarah is trapped geographically. When a massive promotion opens up in another state, Sarah can't take it because selling her house right now would trigger massive closing costs, and interest rates are too high to buy a new one. Tom gets the same offer. He breaks his lease for a $2,000 penalty, moves across the country, takes a $30,000 pay bump, and starts investing $1,500 a month instead of $600. Furthermore, Tom's wealth is entirely liquid. With 3 clicks on his phone, he can turn his assets into cash. Sarah's wealth requires staging, open houses, inspections, and hoping the housing market in her specific zip code hasn't crashed. Now, if I only showed you the downsides of home ownership, I'd be lying to you, because real estate does win in specific, identifiable scenarios. Real estate wins if you hold the property for 20 to 30 years, locking in your housing cost while inflation drives rent through the roof. Real estate wins if you house hack, renting out the basement to cover your mortgage. Real estate wins because it forces you to save. Tom is disciplined. Tom actually invested the $600 difference. But let's be brutally honest. Most people are not Tom. Most people who rent do not invest the difference. They spend it on DoorDash and leased cars. For those people, a mortgage acts as a forced savings account, protecting them from their own bad habits. Sarah and Tom both made choices. Sarah bought leverage, forced savings and stability, but she paid for it with interest, maintenance, and lost mobility. Tom bought flexibility, liquidity, and compound market growth, but he had to have the discipline to actually invest. The real trap isn't renting, and it isn't buying. The trap is making a $500,000 decision based on a cultural myth that renting is throwing money away, without ever sitting down and running the math for your own life. If you're wondering what happens when you combine both, when you rent where you live but buy rental properties in cheaper states, that's a completely different conversation that breaks the matrix entirely. But for now, the next time your uncle tells you at Thanksgiving that you need to buy a house, ask yourself, are you buying an asset or are you buying a lifestyle? Because the math doesn't care about the white picket fence. If you found this breakdown helpful, drop a comment below telling me, are you currently team rent or team buy? And if you want more of the psychology and real math behind the money decisions we make every day, hit subscribe so you catch the next one. Your money habits aren't random. They are a response to the math you've been taught. Let's learn better math.